A to the K.
A to the K.
A to the K. Hello, welcome to the A2theK Wrestling Show for the latest episode of 10, where we're talking the 10 best Royal Rumble surprise entrants of all time. It's going to be an exciting one, this, Anthony, isn't it? Obviously, we are big fans of the Royal Rumble. Big fans.
Yeah, honestly, I've said it before and I'll say it again, Carl. My favourite pay-per-view. I know WrestleMania has a special place in everyone's hearts, and it was, it's the biggest pay-per-view of the year. But for me, the Rumble is always my favourite. It's always the one I look forward to more than any. So.
Yeah, I think I've always been on the fence between the two of them. Obviously, WrestleMania is the grandest stage of them all, but for me, Royal Rumble is the big reset button of the WWE. Effectively, is you might have your day one pay per view and stuff like that, but this is where you know what's happening on the road to WrestleMania. So, but always in the Royal Rumble, one of the best things that you ever get is when somebody you ain't expecting rocks up, and so we have compiled what we believe is the finest list, our 10 best Royal Rumble surprise entrants of all time. So, you ready, Anthony? Should we kick things off?
I was born ready, Carl.
He was born ready. So I'm going to kick off with number 10, who's the one and only Goldust in 2013. Now, this wasn't the first time Goldust had returned to WWE. In fact, it was his fifth. But, all things considered, with this one, there was just no speculation at all around it. So, for shock value, I was definitely caught off guard by this. There was no.
Well, you've got to appreciate a bit of shock value, to be fair. Well,
exactly. There was no rumours doing the rounds, and for good reason, really, as well. Because we later found out, this was actually only a one-off appearance, so it wasn't like he was making a comeback at the Royal Rumble. It literally was because he just, rocked up. So I think nobody knew that he was going to be there. He obviously still had other independent bookings and so on and so forth, so it was never really rumoured. But I loved it because of, firstly because of the shock value, but also we got to see, obviously, Cody go up against Goldust as well in the Rumble and see their interaction, obviously, and it teased something which I think we never got to see under the WWE umbrella. Obviously it was all meant to lead to this.
Luckily it paid off, but not in WWE, as you say.
Well, exactly. So obviously this was the catalyst for that big Double or Nothing match that we got between the two of them. That was what they'd always wanted to do as brothers and stuff like that, which obviously is a fantastic match. But yeah, obviously he did end up showing up later again that year, but it wasn't until the September time. So came back in the January just as a one-off and shocked the hell out of me in the process. So number 10 on the list, it's Goldust.
Okay, love it. So number 9 on the list, Carl, and might surprise you, especially coming from me, because I've never expressed to be a massive fan of this guy. But number 9 on the list, I think, got to be fair, it's got to be Rey Mysterio. Back in 2018, feels like ages ago now. But
so long ago.
Obviously, this is famously Mysterio won the Royal Rumble in 2006. So this, he had been in the company, he'd won a Rumble before now, but that doesn't take away from the fact that, he left the company in 2014. We'd seen him on various different indie promotions, various promotions around the world, and there was no sign of him sort of coming back. And then, would you believe, Royal Rumble 2018, we see him enter. I mean, to be fair, he came in at number 27, so it's quite near the end, but a nice shock moment. And at the time, a lot of people didn't know, is this a one-off? Is he going to come back? And, he did come back for a while. And he's still with us now, actually, but,
I was in a one-night stand that went horribly wrong. I've been back 4 years now.
But as far as sort of welcome returns and shock value, I've been sort of outspoken about his run as the champion and his win of the Royal Rumble in 2006, and I stand by that. Just didn't feel right. I'm a bit of a one for that. He's a cruiserweight who won a world championship. I still don't like it. It still doesn't sit well with me. I don't care what you say. But this was, I think it deserves a place in the list because it was a good shock return with a massive pop, and why not?
Yeah, no, definitely. I believe this was after All In, wasn't it? So obviously he rocked up. He was doing stuff on Ring of Honor and stuff in Japan and things like that, and he was at All In. So I think people never really expected him to go back to WWE after that point, because obviously they thought he was going to.
There was a lot of speculation about him signing on the other side. Well, I don't. Was all Elite a thing? No, it was a thing at that point, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But so it was a welcome surprise. Well, I say a welcome surprise. He is a WWE guy. Let's be honest. I know he had some time away and he did some indies, but I've always considered him a WWE guy. And I'm including WCW in that for those who want to come at me. You know, it's the same company now.
One and the same. But no, I think it was definitely a big surprise, and obviously it was much better than the reaction he got when he wasn't Daniel Bryan. Yeah. So, in all fairness, this was a much better reaction. Obviously, from a shock value, I think everybody was really surprised to see him return just to kind of out of nowhere, and to see him still going strong and bring his son. This is
at a point in his career as well. He got to a bit of a legend status, hasn't he? Where it is a welcome surprise to see him. Or you get to a point, don't you, when you're a veteran in the industry? Some people are always like, he doesn't really need championships at this point. You know what I mean? People are just happy to see him in matches. And again, I'm not a massive fan myself, but I totally get the appeal. I get why people were so made up to see him back, and I get why he got such a pop. So it deserves to be on the list, man.
Yeah, I agree. Coming in at number 8, one of my favourites of all time, the one and only, the legendary Roddy Piper. Now, anyone who knows me, who's watched this show, listened to this show, just knows I absolutely love the bones of Roddy Piper. So this was so out of the blue, and unfortunately he wasn't in the greatest shape of his life, but it's fucking Roddy Piper, you know, so who gives a damn at the end of the day. Obviously Jimmy Snuka had been a entrant in this Rumble earlier on, and which obviously was still, you know, kind of cool, Superfly Snuka. But then to have Piper rock up in the same Rumble while Snuka was still in the ring, that was just the extra sweet spot, because, I mean, firstly, Piper's entrance, he comes down, as I said, he bit of a beer belly on him, stuff like that, but you could just tell it was the same Piper, the way he just kind of looked at the crowd, the way he just did his, you know, usual shtick of like pulling the kilt off and all that. It was so good to see him back. But the fact that he got to get in there with Snuka and kind of, you know, reignite their long-standing rivalry that they'd had, obviously off the old school Piper's Pit episode with the coconut and stuff like that. So yeah, I loved it. Absolute legend. I was made up to see him back in his unusual wrestling gear that he had on and stuff like that. But yeah, I was obviously, it's such a shame now he's no longer here with us, but he'll always go down as one of the best of all time for me. And I love that he could be in one final Rumble. So yeah, definitely number 8 in terms of shock value for me.
No, indeed. Honestly, like you say, absolute legends. And yeah, you know, you get it in terms of the condition, but I think it shows you though how beloved he is. That it didn't matter. Like, you know, like you say, he wasn't technically in ring shape or whatever, but it was just great seeing him there, wasn't it? And couldn't agree more. Definitely. To be honest, I dare say this should even be a little bit higher on the list, but whatever.
I mean, it's a good shout, to be fair.
Not only thinking about it now, it's one of them. Like, I suppose, sadly, it's a huge deal for us, but I get why other ones are classed as bigger. But you know, it's Roddy Piper, man. You know.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it fucking is. Right, so my next one, Carl, and don't be wrong, this isn't the first guy. This isn't the first time this guy's returned, right? But how can you not be made up when he does? And the person in 2013 Royal Rumble, entering at number 2, Carl, is Chris Jericho.
Yeah.
So anytime Chris returned to the company, and he did it multiple times, there's always been something special. One of the things I really liked about this return in particular was this sort of, it was a surprise, but it straight away carried on a nice little feud between him and Ziggler. Some of the best work Ziggler got to do with the company so far, in all fairness. So I don't know if you remember it, Carl, but Dolph Ziggler was the reason that Chris left in the first place. They had I believe he beat him in a match in which he would be fired or terminated or whichever. And then we get to the Royal Rumble. Dolph Ziggler he's took the number 1 spot. So we have this anticipation of who's going to be his first opponent, who walks out, well, whose music hits. Chris fucking Jericho's music. And this just led to a nice little feud between the two of them. And obviously, Chris Jericho came back fucking brilliant. And again, I don't want to be negative about it because it deserves to be on the list. You go, well, is this even the greatest Jericho return? Probably not, but I think it was handled really well. And again, it's always great to see Jericho. I love when Jericho leaves WWE because I love to see him return to WWE. He always gets such a pop and such a moment.
No, definitely. All I will say, Chris Jericho on this, he made the list. That's what I'm going to say.
Nice.
But no, like the big thing I remember from this, obviously amongst the crowd pop that he always gets when he does come back, is was this the debut of his light up jacket? I can't remember.
May have been actually
because I remember the entrance being so drawn out. It was like obviously the music was like a bit of a thing beforehand, and then it was like familiar Jericho, big pop. Then the lights went dark, and then he was just stood there with his little LED jacket on. So I think this was the first time I was like, "Oh, that's fucking cool." I don't think I'd seen it before.
No, I think you might be right on that front. Yeah.
Typical of Jericho as well, to just always come back and slightly reinvent himself every single time. Never just doing the same shtick. So yeah, this was another one with his little light up jackets and stuff like that, which were quality. So.
And I just go back and watch this kind of stuff. Like, his work with Ziggler at the time, especially, but just watch this kind of stuff and remember how much of a legend Jericho is. Because people, I think, they give him a little bit of shit now. Like, and you're like, well, he's in his sort of tenure with wrestling now. Do you know what I mean? He's put the time in. People forget how much of a legend he is, and I think you make a really good point about like he never settled for the same. He'd always reinvent himself in some way. And look at, like, it wasn't even that long ago he got the list of Jericho over, and they had the Festival of Friendship with Kevin Owens and all that kind of stuff.
Good.
It's all brainchilds of Jericho, and all, like, he's willing to sort of work with new stuff constantly, and absolute legend. I mean, look at AEW. He did the Flim Flam and everything during the COVID break. Like, they're just he's definitely a legend in the business. It's a shame sort of because people talk shit more about his body condition now, which is like, well, he is getting on a bit, you know.
Well, exactly. But like, you know, the Painmaker, Le Champion, you know, the Demo Guards. You know, he's had loads, hasn't he?
He's an absolute legend.
So yeah.
So he had to be on the list at least once, and it's here. 2013, Carl, coming in number 2 in the Royal Rumble to upset Ziggler.
Number 2 in the Rumble, number 7 on this list, but he made
number
the list.
1 in our hearts.
That's a shirt. Okay, coming in at number 6. So, you know, speaking before of absolute out of nowhere entrance into the Royal Rumble, you couldn't get much more out of nowhere than number 6 on this list, which is of course Bubba Ray Dudley. Hadn't been in the WWE in 10 years. Obviously, when he left, went on to do some fantastic stuff with TNA. Obviously, the whole Bully Ray character and Aces and Eights and stuff. Yeah. Exactly. You know, I think he was a TNA Hall of Famer, in fact, obviously, for his work that he'd done there. But this was just absolutely mental. I think, you know, 10 years is a long time. I think by the time they because obviously they split up, Bubba and Devon for a bit, didn't they, and did the separate thing with them. But then I can't remember whether they got back together before they left or not. I'm sure they maybe did. But
oh, they did, you know.
No,
I think they left at different times. I think Bubba was gone before Devon, you know.
Maybe. I think you might be right, yeah. Because it's mad because obviously he went away, became Bully Ray, and did all this character work and obviously all that kind of stuff. So then hearing that Dudley Boy's music after so long was just so unexpected because
that don't even nostalgia as well, didn't it?
Yeah,
when you hear that music and you're like, "Fuck, I'm a kid again." That's awesome.
Yeah, because it was such quality. The best entrance musics are the ones where you just hear the very beginning of it and straight away you know, don't you? It's like you're like, "Oh my god!" It's like it's either Bubba or Devon, and like I think for me at the time, I think I must have thought, "Oh, it's probably going to be Devon." Like that seems more likely. And then he just comes out in full Dudley Boy get up, glasses on and everything, proper old school Bubba Ray. And I was just like, that's insane.
And that's the thing. And it's no disrespect to Devon, but I think that's what made it a bigger shock, wasn't it? Because he was so ingrained with TNA at that point. You're like, that's full. He's gone full Bubba.
Yeah, he's gone full Bubba. But I think as well, it probably pissed a lot of people off at the time because especially the ones who were really into Impact or TNA, they loved that Bully Ray character. So to see him come back out in full camo gear with his glasses and that, a few people probably was like, "What the fuck?" But I loved it. It massively popped me. So yeah, it's definitely up there for some of the best surprise returns, I think. So number 6.
And obviously, admittedly, a lot of people didn't really like the most recent run, but this did ultimately lead, not straight away, but ultimately led to both Bubba Ray and Devon coming back to the company and having another run, trying to get younger talent over, and then left a little bit unceremoniously, unfortunately, but it is what it is. We got that nice little back and forth with Enzo and Cass. Sadly, Enzo and Cass ended up not sticking around as a tag team because WWE. But
there you go.
So the next one, Carl, a very, very recent one for you. Last year's, in fact, Carl, and it deserves to be on the list. Maybe more personal for you and me as to why it should be on the list. I don't know if people have classed this as like a big return. I fucking did, and that was Carlito Caribbean Cool. We were so made up to see this guy come back. We were so hyped. It's a little bit of a negative in some sense because we were so hyped for his future with WWE. He was looking great. He kind of left WWE under a cloud and never really hit his full potential there. You know, he had a great feud with Cena, you know, and he was destined to be a world champion, and it just never happened, unfortunately. So to see him come back and see him looking in great shape, and you go, you know what, this could be the start of like another WWE run. I was absolutely made up, massively popped. He did get it. He got a massive pop from the crowd anyway. Like, but I get why some people might not have him on the list of like, you know, the best returns or whichever. But for me, this was a hell of a fucking return, and it's such a shame that it doesn't seem to have gone anywhere. But yeah, come on, Carl. I think you got to go with it. He's your namesake, Carl.
Well, that's it. You know, growing up, I was always referred to as Carlito. I think I even had Carlito, the entrance music, as my ringtone at one point, didn't I? Just a bit where it's like Carlito. Because why not? But yeah, it's obviously such a shame that he came back at a time. I don't think, was it still the Thunderdome crowd at that point? Because they only got fans back at WrestleMania. I think he came back. So I think
that weird hybrid like last year with the
maybe.
You know, there's like some fans but behind shields and stuff.
Yeah, I can't remember. But I know that he deserved to come back in front of a full crowd, definitely. So it's a shame he couldn't get the massive pop that he deserved with that. But it's also a shame his gimmick was to spit in the face of people who don't want to be cool when you're in COVID times. But no, I think, yeah, massive pop from us. We've always thought he was an absolute legend, and it is, as you said, such a shame that he couldn't come back and make a bigger run of it, unfortunately. But you know, it's mad because people have been saying for years and years and years, Carlito's coming back at the Rumble, because you always get that around the Rumble time, don't you? People always come up with like, so and so will be back this year, and it never happens. And you know, Carlito was like meme status at this point, with like, he's never going to be back on the Rumble. Then they finally brought him back, and then he showed up the next night on Raw, and we were super excited, and then it just never panned out, which is a massive shame because I agree, he could have gone on to be a world champ, but wasn't meant to be. But yeah, certainly belongs at number 5 on this list. Fantastic shock value to see, and to hear the Carlito music after all them years.
Indeed.
So coming in at number 4, one of my favourites of all time, Mr. Perfect. Right, you can all take a second to imagine how 13-year-old Carl was jumping around his living room when this happened at ridiculous o'clock in the morning on a school night when I should have been in bed, because that's what we have to do in the UK, especially on a Rumble. You can't just wake up the next day.
Honestly,
otherwise there ain't surprises anymore.
That's the funny thing. I don't think people, obviously other Brits will understand this, but like, we associate WWE pay-per-views with fucking tiredness as well.
Oh, yeah.
Do you not understand that guy?
My gosh, it's. I mean, when I was a lot younger, like obviously 13 in this example, when Perfect came back, but I'd try and stay up as much as I could for all of them, and then the older you get, and it's just not the case anymore. So now we can manage a Rumble and a WrestleMania, and it's nice whenever they have stuff that's on a normal time, like the Saudi shows, for example. We get to watch them at an actual normal time, so they're quite nice. Like, I know obviously you're going to be watching the Rumble with me this year, and we'll probably also be watching the Chamber because it's on a decent time. So whether we do that in person or we just talk throughout as we're watching it live, I know that we're watching that. But to jump back to this, one of my favourite wrestlers of all time, I always say, like, is he tied for number 1 with Brett? I don't know. He probably
honestly,
is.
I've heard you confidently say that he is your favorite. I
know. It's. I always flip flop between the two, but so I'm going to say he's my favorite wrestler as well. But yeah, 13 years old, hearing that music, my God, you can't imagine the emotions that I felt. He's, for your favorite wrestler who's been gone from the company for over 6 years, this is after WCW. It's just I just never expected it. As far as I was concerned, he was winding down his career, probably headed for retirement, doing a couple of indie bookings, stuff like that. So 13-year-old me just never in a million years dreamt that this was going to happen. And what a comeback it was as well. So the music hits, there he is, looking fantastic, his usual shtick, throwing the towel behind his back, catching it, and the chewy and stuff like that. And then he's one of the final four in it. It comes down to... Yeah. It comes down to Perfect, Austin, Angle, and Triple H. And I think Austin goes before... I think he's one of the final three. Austin goes before Perfect. So
honestly, that's one of the cool things about this as well, is that it wasn't even just like he's back for a crowd reaction and he's eliminated a few seconds later, do you know what I mean, or anything like that. Like, he was in this Rumble.
They presented him as a legitimate threat, which I was made up. It even had... Obviously, I wasn't... I wasn't as... experienced as I am now with how WWE do things, but I remember 13-year-old me thinking he's going to come back and win the WWE title. It's always eluded him. He's one of the finest Intercontinental champs, but he's never won the big one. How silly I was, that was never happening. But yeah, obviously
I don't care about your feelings, Carl.
Yeah, they made my day and broke it at the same time. But no, it was such an amazing feeling seeing him come back after all them years, and he did get a little bit of a run after the Rumble as well. It wasn't an amazing one, and unfortunately slowly ended up going back down to the likes of Sunday Night Heat and stuff like that. And yeah, it's such a massive shame what subsequently went on to happen after he went back to Impact and unfortunately passed away. So, but yeah, I was made up. I got to see him, one more time as a much older kind of kid than I was when I used to watch him and just be obsessed with him when I was young. So yeah, number 4 on this list, fucking legend, and yeah, it's such a great return.
Indeed. So Carl, the next one, probably the most obvious in the list. I think this goes in most people's lists for obvious reasons, but it doesn't make any less deserving. But my next one, number 3, is John Cena in 2008, Carl. Mm-hmm. So this was just executed beautifully, and I don't know if this was a work on some level, because obviously John Cena was out on injury, and the time scale for his return was nowhere near the Rumble, so no one expected him to come back. And I don't know whether John Cena is superhuman and recovered a lot quicker than any human should, or whether it was a little bit of a work so that they could execute this kind of return. But bottom line is, we get to the Royal Rumble 2008, number 30. Who's coming in at number 30? No one sees it coming. It's John Cena back from injury. And the crowd reaction was just fucking electric. So it's got to be on the list. And it was I still think possibly a work in terms of like, oh yeah, he's not going to, there's no chance of him being back anytime soon. But I don't care. They worked it right, and the reaction was fucking brilliant. And honestly, like, this was at a point when I think this was like a bit of oversaturation of John Cena. So the fact that he could still get that sort of reaction as well, like when people were kind of tired of the gimmick, is fantastic. For me, a really good return. And again, probably goes down as one of the more obvious ones on the list, because I think he lands in most people's, top Royal Rumble returns. But rightly so, I would say.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. At the time, you definitely couldn't see it coming.
Hey.
But yeah, there's something special about a number 30 entrant where you kind of racking your brains and thinking, well, who else could it be? I've seen everyone. Like, this is going to be, because you almost start to go, well, all my favourites have already come out now, so there's probably going to be someone shit coming in at number 30. So you start to dampen your expectations a little bit. So when they do pull off a massive surprise at a number 30, it kind of, I don't want to sound like WWE 2K22's, bloody advertisements here, but it hits different, So yeah, I think it was kind of out of nowhere. I loved his little kind of shit-eating grin on his face as well when he's just stood there, like his little thing he did with his arms. He was like, and the fans are losing the shit. So
it's like you can see it, and like he knew.
Yeah, but I think it's one of them. I legit don't think it was a work. I think he is just an absolute freak of nature. I think the timeline for
Honestly,
the injury that he had,
both are crazy believable.
yeah, well, true. But I think for the injury he had, the timeline that was given, I don't think that was put out there by WWE. I think people were just like, oh, well, typically for this injury it takes this amount of time. But I think either it wasn't as super severe as first thought, or he's just an absolute monster. But yeah, so definitely took everybody by surprise. And then, did he win it this year? Is that the one he won? I can't remember. I'm not sure if he came in the 30 and won the damn thing. So it's always even more of a shock when stuff like that happens, because when you're not even expecting someone, because you make your picks, don't you? You kind of say like, oh, I reckon it's going to be, this guy winning, that guy winning it. So when a surprise entrant shows up and wins it, then that's
exactly. It's one of them. Like, I don't know how you feel about number 30's winning it, because it's kind of an easy win. But again, surprise, just back off injury and comes in and wins. It's a feel good story of the year, to be honest, Cal.
Oh yeah. It's always just on this slight digression. It's always pissed me off. Like, irked me that for whatever reason, if you win it at number 2, it's not seen as as big of an achievement as if you win it at number 1. It's like you both start the match at the same time. It's so stupid.
That's a really fucking good point.
It does me head in.
You literally just did an entrance. That was it. That's the only thing you did ahead of me.
And it's like I think it's like Rey Mysterio. I'm not sure with Shawn Michaels as well, maybe, but like people, they get touted as like won it from number 1. It's like, hang on, motherfuckers. Ric Flair won it from number 2. Like, that's the same, if not better, and that was the best Rumble ever. So that
both
counts
stood
more.
In the ring at the same time the bell rang, you twats.
Yeah, it's like and like, if anything, it's harder for number 2, because by the time number 2's getting in the ring, number 1 could have already attacked him. Come on, you know what I mean? As he's getting into the ring,
you've got a really good point there, Carl.
So blasphemy.
We need to petition to get number 2 the same respect.
That's it.
Respect number 2, Carl. The shirt. Do it.
Well, Anthony, I'm going to put some respect on number 2, because next up is entry number 2 in this list, and this was something I don't think in my lifetime I ever saw coming, and it was the debut, not just a return and surprise in that sense, the debut for the first time ever in the company. I'm not sure whether this ever even been done before, of AJ Styles. This was mental, man.
You're right about it not being done before. This is definitely the first time AJ Styles debuted for the
Fuck you. But like, I mean, I'm sure it has happened, but I can't think of many examples off the top of my head. But especially none on like the kind of grandeur as this, where you heard the music and you didn't recognize the music, so you were like, there's fucking Def Rebel coming up with some other shit remix or something now, you know what I mean? Like,
what I loved is, like, because of the way his video does as well, you get the music and you're like, what's going on here? And then you get I am phenomenal, and you're like,
exactly. And I remember at the time, like, because obviously I'm watching it just like everyone else, going, who the fuck's this guy? And it's like, I am. And as soon as that word phenomenal comes on, the crowd just loses their shit, and then it's like, oh, you don't want none. It just comes out in his hood. It's this whole different fucking experience that, we talk about shock value when obviously making this list. I don't know. This may be the most shocking entry on the list, and I know it's we haven't called it the most shocking, so I can say that because we're talking about the best returns. I
take your point. I mean,
but
I would say number 1 is probably up there in terms of shock, but for a different reason.
Yeah,
and we'll talk about that shortly. But I do take your point. This is probably the most shocking, because this isn't someone who was with WWE, coming back to WWE or anything like that. This was like just
in my head as well. He's someone who never fit the mold of WWE. Like, he tried for years and years and years when he was with TNA to get there, and he was always looked at as too small, too southern, just not a Vince McMahon guy.
Fair play to WWE. Like, they put so much respect on him. Mm-hmm. He wasn't just in this briefly. He was in the Rumble for a significant amount of time, and his run in WWE has been phenomenal. Like, they put some respect on AJ Styles, so it's not like they brought him in and still considered him like, well, you're not championship material.
No, that's one of the biggest shocks for me, that the likes of AJ Styles would go on to be a Vince McMahon guy after all that time of being rejected by him, I think he's now seen as like another Shawn Michaels to Vince, and we know how much Vince loves Shawn, so that in itself
like
speaks
Shawn
volumes.
Michaels.
Anyway. Funny. I can
but
laugh
no,
because I'm sure.
The only negative I've got about this is, and I mentioned this before, Carl, and it still pisses me off. Certainly on what we saw, the camera pans a Roman's stupid face instead of him walking to the fucking ring. That still bugs me. That still bugs me. I don't care what Roman's reaction was to it. We wanted to see this guy come down and embrace the crowd, and we missed some of that because we're looking at Roman like, who's this guy?
I've not seen this guy before because the only wrestling product that exists is WWE, right, Vince?
Just masturbating his wrist like he does.
You don't want none. So yeah.
Honestly, I jest about how like cartoony the stupid Roman is sometimes, but honestly, if a big Samoan guy stood there doing that to you, there's nothing more fucking terrifying. I'll be honest with you.
It's a very good point. Calling himself the big dog and shit as well. You're like, oh shit. But yeah, so this kind of blew my mind at the time because I just never I never expected it. I don't think there was any hype around it as far as that I saw. Obviously, I always try and avoid spoilers and stuff, so there was nothing that I saw leading up to it, like, you know.
I must admit, I don't know if there was anything out there, but I was the same. I didn't see anything about him possibly being signed or anything, to be honest with you.
Which it's the best way to watch a Rumble. I think it's and I don't want to shit on the great work of the likes of Sean Rossap and to some degree, maybe not so much anymore, but back in the day of Meltzer, like.
Okay, I'll give you that.
But it's like, they're fantastic at what they do, but at the same time, it does ruin it for you as well. So it's a really, because especially
sadly we're a bit more tuned into it now as well. Because
I know
we're this podcast out there, we're reading the dirt sheets, which is fucking annoying.
I know it's so bad. I hate it in a way because I hate having stuff spoiled for me. But yeah, it kind of comes part and parcel with it. But this one definitely I wasn't aware of, and that made it all the more sweet. But Anthony, before we go into the number one pick, I know there was an honourable mention that we wanted to give who didn't quite make the list. It was a certain individual who made an appearance a couple of times in the same Rumble, which is a bit surprising.
A couple of times? Yeah, I don't think he needed to be on the list because it's kind of not like it's not really in keeping with the list, but I wanted to mention him because it was surprising in its own way. So I figured we'll talk about it as an honourable mention, and that is one Michael Foley, who, I mean, technically we didn't see Mick Foley as I recall in the Rumble.
I don't think we did. We might have done though. I don't think so. I think it was
Mankind. Just the three, wasn't it?
Mankind,
we saw
Cactus Jack,
Mankind,
and Dude Love.
Yeah, exactly. Mankind, Cactus Jack, and Dude Love. Is it Dude Love?
Dude Love.
I went to call him Brother Love for a second. I'm confident that's not Brother Love.
I love you.
So, yeah, and I want to give it a mention because that, in terms of itself, that is a Rumble moment, and that is shocking, and it's like it got funnier the more it kept happening. But is it a surprise? No, it kind of, but I didn't think it merited being on the list for obvious reasons. But I wanted to give it a mention because it's still a favourite WWE moment of mine. That it still tickles me to this day. Yeah,
no, definitely worthwhile honourable mention, I would say. But Anthony, do you want to reveal?
I will.
Who tops the list?
Number one, Carl, and I think we can all agree on this because we're all still fucking hyped about it. 2020, just before the pandemic, so we had the crowds and we had the reaction, which is fucking brilliant. I'm fucking lucky because it wasn't long after, right? But we saw Edge return out of fucking nowhere, and it felt out of nowhere because obviously we had a very, very emotional retirement from Edge. I still remember to this day him coming out and talking about the fact that he basically, he could end up fully paralyzed if he keeps going. His neck's fucked, basically. I'm sure he put it a lot better than I just have. But
so eloquent with his words.
That very emotional retirement from Edge, and everyone believed that's him done with wrestling. Mm-hmm. And many years passed, and you just you're used to it. You're like, yeah, that sadly Edge, one of the best, but can't wrestle anymore. So to see him return at the Royal Rumble, to have his music hit like that, it just hit different, didn't it, Carl? It was fantastic. It was a goosebumps moment. I think it's fair to say. I think we both got it. and you could see the crowd reaction. And you know what got me more than the crowd reaction?
Edge's reaction.
Sort of started the response? Yeah, it was Edge. You could just see
know.
him embrace it and just absolutely be like, I've never seen someone be so happy to be back.
He got emotional though, didn't he? Which obviously it made me massively emotional. You could just see his lip trembling a little bit, and that's just like, you motherfucker.
I think, especially because, like, I don't know about you, Carl, but I think since we became parents, you end up more of an emotional mess anyway. So.
Oh, it fucks you right off that, yeah. But yeah, it was amazing. The thing as well about this, which is why I think it truly is the rightful place as the number one spot, is it transcended wrestling almost, because, you know, I went into work the next day and wrestling ain't cool by, you know, a lot of people's standards. So to hear people just who don't watch wrestling be like, overhear them go, "Oh my god, didn't Edge come back at the Royal Rumble?" You're like, what? Like, it was newsworthy almost, because they obviously watched it at a time. Everyone knows who Edge is, and they're like, "Oh yeah, Edge came back," and it's just like, wow, that's mad.
Yeah, that is surreal, because we're used to people not really knowing much about wrestling unless you're a wrestling fan. But yeah, to transcend beyond that is crazy, really. But it's definitely my number one. And it's no disrespect to the others. Everything in this list were amazing returns. But I say there was just something, and I maybe because it was so recent and, you know, it still sticks in my mind so well. And maybe that's some of it, but it was such an emotional return. That's how can you not love it, and how can it not be number one? You know,
I think this is one where the crowds just make it that much better as well. Like the you know, I think I've got a lot of choice words to say about Kevin Dunn, but if he was responsible for capturing some of these crowd reactions during his entrance, then fair play, because, like, just people losing their fucking minds at the fact that it's Edge, it's Edge, it's Edge. Like, I can't believe it's Edge. You know, you can just see them exploding.
I think this really emphasizes the importance of a theme music as well, because people knew the minute that music hit. It wasn't even the music; it's that initial bit, wasn't it?
Yeah, you think you know me, and then
and just one line, and gets people.
I know.
Right? And that shows the importance of something like that. Like, that's a total different topic, but that's where you need.
They are. Oh no, go on. Sorry.
I was going to say, the minute you hear Edge's music, you know exactly who it is, and that's perfect. It is connected with him forevermore. That it's like hearing the literally Undertaker's, like, slightly one better, where you just hear a gong and you're like, it's Undertaker. Like, that's it. You know straight away. And Edge's is similar to that. The moment you hear that line, you know who's coming, and fantastic.
The music is a massive part of it, but I think WWE are also fantastic at building the hype. Like, when it's someone big, you always get that. It feels like just that extra half second to a second of pause.
It makes all the difference, doesn't it?
And because you're anticipating who it's going to be anyway, and when it makes you hang on that bit longer, and then you hear it, it's like, fuck. So they are great at what they do.
They're great at the pause, actually.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I think the absolute right choice. I think it probably comes as a surprise to nobody, and probably tops the majority of other lists of like these that are out there. But obviously, this is our list, and this is from our personal experiences. And yeah, I think this one just was unbelievable. Just the shock factor of thinking he was never coming back, because he was done. He'd gone on to make movies and TV shows, and it never looked like he was coming back. He kept it so well hidden. You know, he had a wrestling ring hidden away somewhere. There was no pictures or anything posted of him training. He wasn't doing anything publicly. It was all completely kept behind closed doors. He made sure that nobody knew this was happening. No one knew he was cleared, anything. So fair play to Edge as well for keeping kayfabe alive, and fair
play to him, because even like people who were then keeping tabs on him, all they were knowing about was like, oh, he's breaking into acting, he's in Vikings, and he's doing like. So you think, oh yeah, he's well put his career behind him. You know what I mean? Like, proper sneaky devil.
Yeah. You sneaky devil.
But honestly, yeah, it should be number one on anyone's list.
So yeah, let us know. Did we leave anybody off the list that you think should be on there? Was there somebody on there that you didn't even remember being there? But
we want you to note down any that you think we missed. We want you to write it down on a little piece of paper.
Turn that sumbitch. I couldn't resist. You set it up too much. I had to race in there. But yeah, damn piece of paper. Watch out for paper cuts. All I'm saying. But yeah, let us know in the comments. Obviously, we'll end up posting this, the actual 10 to 1 on socials as well in the next day or two. But yeah, if you've joined us all the way up to this point, thank you for watching along. Let us know your thoughts on our list, what other lists you want to see us do as well in the future. If you haven't checked it out already, go and check out This Week in Wrestling, which we just talked about the last week, as well as all the latest news and rumours in the Ringside Report. And yeah. Also, why don't you buy our shit? Go to ProWrestlingTees.com, get our t-shirts on there. Some pretty cool designs, and also follow us on all the places. If you're watching this, make sure you listen to us. We're available on everywhere, basically, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Wear our faces
and follow us in places.
That's the one. Except, yeah, I really don't like it when you tell people to wear our faces. It feels very Hannibal Lecter.
Everything about it was creepy.
I haven't slept in months. Well, yeah, that too. But yeah, or if you are listening to this, then come and check out the faces you're going to steal from us, and watch us on YouTube. But until next time, thanks again. We are A2theK, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
Hey guys, it's Georgia Smith here, and you've heard me on A2theK. These guys are awesome. Check it out. A2theK. A2theK.